guys. Alright, let's see. We're gonna try and miss the lighting. Alright. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let me get a few minutes to kind of get the lighting and everything right. It's a kind of cloudy afternoon, so I don't have as much sunlight as I normally do when I'm streaming these. Hopefully, you all can hear me okay. Geez. Well, I'm gonna have to work with it. I know I'm kind of half of my face is kind of darkened out, but I only have one light, so it is what it is. But we'll keep working on it, and I'm gonna keep getting better at these live streams as we go along. Anyway, so I finally put out a fish room video. Hope you all enjoyed that. Hope you all, if you're interested in the fitness live stream, I think that went pretty well. So check that out if you haven't already or you're interested in it. But before I get started with medication and talking all about that fish stuff, these will probably be the terrariums you see behind me for the next few weeks. My girlfriend and I yesterday decided to do a fun little challenge where I had her make a terrarium and she had me make a terrarium. Both of those are kind of our weaknesses, so we decided to challenge each other and see how that went. So the next few weeks, I'll kind of highlight those, see the progress probably over the next month through these live streams, and then hopefully with a fish room tour at the end of the month. We'll see. I'm not sure whether it's going to be monthly or quarterly yet. Haven't decided. If you guys have any thoughts, if you're interested in monthly, let me know. Or if you don't really care to see it change month after month, because I don't know how much change there will be. But let me know down in the comments. But anyway, let me see if I can highlight these. Oh boy. I'm going to try this. We're going to see how it goes. All right, so that actually works out kind of good. This is her gerarium. I know you probably can't see it too well, but that's as good as I can get it, unfortunately. Maybe. Uh-oh. Hold on. Goodness gracious. So that's her gerarium. That's my terrarium. So right now, not much to look at in mine. A little bit more to look at in hers. But we both decided we needed to use some plants. We had a lot of leftovers in our quarantine bin, and we had some containers lying around. So we'll see over the next few weeks how it goes. And then by the end of the month, maybe you all can decide which one's the winner. And we might do some more of these fun little challenges. If you guys have any ideas of challenges, let us know down in the comments. We're open to trying new stuff if we got the supplies for it, of course. All right, so now on to today's topic, and that's going to be medicine. So first, I want to say forewarning that I don't have a lot of practice with putting medication, well, some for professional sense, but in the freshwater, I do have some, but not a lot. So there are other people definitely out there. Corey of Aquarium Co-op, for one, who deals with lots and lots of fish. Owning a fish store has that benefit of getting to add medication to lots of fish and getting lots of practice that way. So I don't personally have practice, so I'm taking a lot of information from other hobbyists and professionals and using that and the background knowledge that I understand from chemistry and various aspects of the aquarium world to kind of talk about these. But personally, I've used all of them at some point, but not a lot and with mixed success. So we'll talk all about that in this afternoon's live stream. So first, one I want to talk about is General Cure. If you guys can get that, it is a very good product. I don't believe they make it anymore. I'm pretty sure you can't really get these in stores, but if you can come across them, I would buy them up. This is a parasite. It, I believe, has erythromycin in it. Let me see. No, metronidazole and praziquantel. So, personally, this I've had pretty good success with. It does work pretty well for external parasites. Internal, it's so-so. But it is a pretty good option to run with. Now, there's mixed results on how you do this. The package says, like, add 1 packet per 10 grams and then water change after 2 days. Aquarium Co-op says that you can do this and then let it sit for a week and then do a water change and then dose again for a second week. That way you get rid of any of the eggs, because the first dose will kill the parents, but then you have to worry about the eggs. If you don't dose again, those eggs will hatch out and then you'll just have to start the process over. So you want a second round for pretty much all of these to make sure that, especially for parasites, to make sure that all those eggs are gone. I have used this in the professional sense in the saltwater world, both metronidazole and praziquantel. I've put them in gel before, so if you get rapashi, you can put something like this in the gel. There's mixed reviews about that. It definitely works better for internal parasites if you think that's the issue, but I don't know if it's entirely necessary, and some people would argue that's not the best way to go. I don't know. I mean, I used it more as a precautionary measure for my job, and it seemed to work fine. We never really had much of an issue with it. Some fish stick their nose up at it and won't want to eat it because of the smell. But other than that, it worked, I guess. I mean, we never had any that died from wasting or any internal parasites. And we also dosed it externally for extended periods of time to treat ectoparasites. So that, I would say, was successful. That we would see on occasion and did work. Okay. All right. So moving on. This is one I recently got. This is from Aquarium Co-op. This is Fritz Paracleanse. So this is basically what the new General Cure is. Since you can't really get General Cure, this is what I'm using right now. I am actually putting this in one of my tanks right now. I believe I might have a problem with hole in the head on one of my fish, and then there was what looked like some wasting disease going on. So I am treating this just in the water right now. I have lost 1 fish since I started treating this, but I'm not really sure. I just don't think he reacted well to this treatment because it seemed very sudden. Anyway, I will let you all know how this goes. So far, the fish haven't died. They haven't. I still think I see it, so I don't know if it's gotten better per se, but I am going to keep trying this. This is my second round of it, so hopefully in another week or 2 after I'm done treating this, I'll let you all know the results of that. Hopefully someone can remind me and I don't forget in a week or 2 on the live stream. But this, again, external, internal parasites. So they list a lot of things on the back. I'm not really sure how much of that it's going to cover. Some of these are a little more extreme. You don't see too often, but could be a little trickier, like velvet, to get rid of. So I don't think it would treat velvet, but I don't know. Maybe I'll find out, unfortunately, but until that day comes, right now I'm just looking at hole in the head and then maybe some wasting disease. So we'll see how that goes. All right, next one. We got fungus cure. So this is Victoria Green and Acroflavin. I don't really know. I bought this once. It didn't work. I had a beta with mouth fungus and it didn't really get rid of it. So unfortunately that beta passed away. But yeah, this I never had success with. So this is, I wouldn't try it. Honestly, I'd try and go do something else. So that's all I have to say about that. All right, this one, Indian almond leaves. So this is basically an example of any blackwater botanical. So anything, this one came from Aquarium Co-op, but there's places like Blackwater Botanical. I think Busey Plant sells some, maybe even Aquatic Arts as well. All of those places will sell at least something like an almond leaf because they're also great food for shrimp. But these will tannin stain your water. It helps with an antifungal, antibacterial type deal. There's a lot of benefits to having tannin in your water for fish health. It can really help betas a lot with fin rot or preventing fin rot. So this is pretty good, especially for like shrimp tanks. But if you're seeing a problem and you want to go a more natural, less aggressive route, if you have fragile fish or you're worried about dosing the entire tank, this is an option. Now, if you put a lot of tannins in there, it's good for the fish, bad for the plants. Because that water is dark, the plants won't be able to photosynthesize as well. So that's something to consider. But if you're more worried about the fish health, which I usually am, I would put these in a tank first. So that's a good option. Almond leaves, alder cones, cholla wood, even like wood really will work. Leaves, any kind of like leaf litter that you see on the bottom of a river or lake, something like that. That's basically tannins, but don't go out and just get some from the wild because then you're bringing in parasites and other problems. Like buy them online unless you're a real expert, and then you might be able to dry your own. But I would really be careful of that. And you're probably more an expert than I am if that's the case. Okay, on to the next one. It Guard. I've honestly never tried this. I got this from someone who didn't want their tank anymore. Again, Victoria Green and Acroflavin. So this is the same stuff as that fungal cure. So I doubt it works, if I'm being honest. So we'll talk about some methods that people claim to get rid of ick. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I probably would avoid getting this because I doubt it works. I probably won't use it ever, but if I try down the road, we will see. All right. Anyway, next one, Fritz, Maricin 2 Mardel. This is for bacterial infections. I may actually have to dose one of my tanks with this. I am worried a little bit about a bit of a bacterial infection that may be happening, but we will see. So things like fin rot and tail rot, Popeye, dropsy. So this can be very helpful for betas. Or if you have guppies, fin rot is pretty common. So this will be something that you may have to use at some point in time. Oh, let me see. I'm trying to remember. I can't exactly remember the active ingredient in these because each packet contains aminosilene activity. Okay. Not really sure what the heck that is. But anyway, this is a pretty good bacterial treatment, allegedly. Again, this, I think, replaced what used to be erythromycin. That's what I would think is the active ingredient in here, but I'm not 100% sure. But this is for bacterial infections. I don't think you can get erythromycin anymore, so this is the next option, Maricin 2. Well, I may be testing this in the near future on one of my tanks, so if I do, I will let you know the results, but this is probably going to be the front runner, aside from one other option that I have that I'm going to push here in just a minute. Anyway, Maricin 2, your medicated over-the-counter bacterial infection type deal. All right, it is happy hour, so I am a human being and I'm going to drink. That's why this is not for children. I'm not going to show you what I'm drinking, but if anyone out there is drinking, cheers. So, anyway, continuing on, this is ICX. This is, I believe, malachite green. So this is what I probably would use for ick. I have used malachite green for, well, marine ick in the past, but same stuff, same base or active ingredient in here, and that does work to some extent. So I've never had to deal with ick, and I kind of go a different route if I can. But IckX would be my recommendation. Excuse me, for your ick problems in a freshwater tank. If you're really worried about heating the tank up, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yes, I have used this before. It has worked, so I can say that much. I haven't used this product specifically, but again, it's malachite green, just with a different label slapped on it. It works. This is, whoops, hold on. There we go. That's the Aquarium Co-op Trio Pack. So I would pick that up just to have on hand in case something happens. It's easier to deal with that way. So that would be my recommendations for medication. Just those three to have on hand. And then maybe if you want some of these almond leaves, never hurt to have around to feed. Even for shrimp and things, that biofilm it creates is great. Tannins help take care of them. All that good stuff. All right, 2 products that are not, I repeat, are not worth it. A little bit better. The moment I stop putting these in the water, the infection immediately comes back. It kind of reminds me of your typical drugstore. It helps reduce the symptoms for a short period of time, but it doesn't help get rid of them. So in some cases, if you're feeding well, doing lots of water changes, that might help them fight off the infection like our over-the-counter medications do for us. Our immune system helps fight it back. But in some cases where you really can't do that and you actually need some powerful meds, that's where you have to start using things like Paracleanse, Maricin 2, IckX, stuff like that. So I would not get Chemofix or Melofix. The only reason I have those is, again, someone gave them to me when they started breaking their tank down and didn't want it anymore. All right, so then one more very important item, aquarium salt. This is not regular salt, so don't just start putting regular salt. Get aquarium salt. It's not expensive, so you shouldn't complain. A ton of this. I think I even just got this. Someone was breaking down their tank, didn't want it anymore, so this entire container is free. So what I'm going to say is this and one other method, heat, that we will talk about in a minute, will basically cure a wide range of almost everything except internal parasites in my mind. Now, the reverse can be said for the saltwater world. If you want to be aggressive, I have in the past done freshwater dips on saltwater fish. It's especially good for ectoparasites, but can do a lot of bacterial and other infections. The point is that most bacteria, parasites, all of the above, can only tolerate a narrow range of salinity. When you go way outside of that extreme by a freshwater dip or a saltwater dip, that shocks them and will kill them without hopefully killing the fish. But some fish don't do well with that, so I would be very careful about doing so. Are the meds plant safe? So, real easy. These 3 are plant safe. So these are safe for inverts, any fish, and plants. So you're okay to put this in your own display tank if you really have to, but usually those are going to be your bigger ones, so you don't want to have to be putting 9 packets in there and then doing a water change and then having to add 9 more. But in some cases, you have to. So those are plant safe. Aquarium salt is not. Too much of that will kill your plants. And when we're talking medication levels, that is that level. So it'll pretty much kill your plants. There might be a very narrow range that can tolerate it a lot. Those African plants, Anubias, Java fern, Bobitis, those might be able to tolerate it. But outside of that, I think it would pretty much kill any plant at that level. It may kill shrimp, especially if you have crystal reds. Definitely don't do this method. Go with the medication or with these almond leaves, which they are, of course, plant safe. The flip side of that is adding tannins to the water makes your light level go down. So it could be harder for some plants, but you can do a very nice aquascape with like Java ferns and things that can tolerate a very low light with very high tannins, and it makes a very nice black water tank. So food for thought. All right, but continuing on, aquarium salt. Now, I'm not going to go through how much dosage you need for each type of problem you have. For that, I refer you to Aquarium Co-op's blog. Yes, that's a free plug. I am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. So I would definitely recommend you go look on their website. They can give you lots of information on different problems you may be seeing, and then how to diagnose them just using aquarium salt based on tablespoons and gallons is all you got to know. So it's pretty easy. This, for the most part, I would say is the best method if you think a fish can tolerate it. And what I mean by that is if you think it's a very sensitive fish, like a loach or some scaleless fish or some just very finicky fish, this may not be the best method actually. But you may try it as well. But for hardier stuff, betas, barbs, danios, guppies, all of that, salt is going to be amazing, especially when you're talking like live bearers, because you can almost put them in brackish water, which almost no parasites or anything survive well in because it's that weird hybrid child that no one really wants to deal with. Aquarium salt can be great for those. They can survive long periods of time in brackish water without any issues. All right, so then last few items I have. One is syringes. I think these are extremely important in measuring very small increments. I use these for both fertilizer, which we'll talk about, I believe, next week, and they are good for medication. If you have ICX, that can be helpful. Or if you want to make this solution and try and put it directly into the water, sometimes you may only have 5 gallons. You need half a packet. Pour a whole packet in 10 gallons of water, technically, or I guess a small amount of water, and do half the amount, if that makes sense. So say you had 10 ounces of water and you wanted to do half that for safety's sake. Let's just say 5 ounces. You measure that out, and that's half the dose for a tank. That's really for a nano tank idea. But anyway, 2 more things I want to say. 1, heat. That is probably the best ICX or IC cure. Next to ICX, which, sidebar, if you have an ick problem in your tank, I would try turning the heat up first because ICX turns everything blue. It will go away after a while, but you may not see all that blue in your tank. So that may not go over super well if it's a display tank or something very nice that you don't want all that blue coloring over everything. But heat, if you can turn the heat up, which a lot of fish can tolerate a higher heat, I believe it's above 84 degrees. It might be 86. Again, I refer you over to Aquarium Co-op's blog for that exact number. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's either 84 or 86, and you turn it up that high, and the fish will hopefully they can tolerate it. It does not do well at that high of a temperature, so it'll start to die off, and that way you can get rid of the ick without having to add any medication at all. So some warmer water fish, especially like discus and things, can survive better with that higher temperature, and that's a good method to prevent ick on that. However, putting the temperature up can kill your plants, and a lot of times inverts too. They can't go that high in temperature unless it's like a Sulawesi shrimp or snail, but that's a whole nother conversation. The plants do not, again, other than African plants like Java fern, Bovitis, and Anubias, you can't usually bring the temperature up that high, and even they might start to melt and die off. That temperature is just too much. Plants prefer actually colder temperatures than what we usually keep our tanks at. They prefer like into the 60s normally. All right. Well, I think that's about it. The last thing I do want to talk about to wrap this up is quarantine tanks. Now, I will do a separate video showing mine, but I think it's a very good option for anyone to have at least a quarantine tank, if not a quarantine and a hospital tank. I thought about getting a hospital tank myself, but for now, I'm just going to be doing a quarantine tank. Then that's usually any fish you get in, you put them in that tank and you let them sit for 2 to 3 weeks observing them. That doesn't necessarily mean medicating them. You can if you like, or if you suspect something from the store, but hopefully you should at least be watching them diligently when they feed, if anyone's eating, if anyone's getting picked on, fin damage. Those 3 weeks are for you to observe those fish really well and make sure that they are going to be healthy and good to go and safe for your display aquarium, because it can be terrible. I can tell you firsthand recently that losing an entire stock of fish because you were careless can really end your hobby experience. So I think a quarantine tank does a great job of preventing that from happening. It's easy to pick up a 10-gallon tank. Maybe you can find one on Facebook or Let Go, or Petco has like $1 per gallon sale. Get a nice 10-gallon tank. I wouldn't really put plants in it. I have a few in there just for a little filtration, but really it should be heavy water changes, feeding a good amount just to make sure that they're all getting plenty of food. So that'll help keep them healthy, because the whole moving could be a shock to their system. You can do fake decorations or like little caves and things. That's probably pretty good, especially for some of the bottom dwellers or some of the more shy species like gouramis or apistogrammas. I would put lots of caves in there. That way they can feel comfortable hiding. But no, other than fake decorations, I wouldn't necessarily recommend live plants. And while it can be great, they probably won't do very well. And in the end, you could end up with them dying because you actually did end up having to add salt. Quarantine tanks, this is your chance to make those fish healthier. So you have to do what's necessary. And if that's aquarium salt, you can't be willing to risk your plants. Now, and it's very common for people to set up a quarantine tank with plants and then be like, oh, well, I started moving stuff around, then it started looking really nice, and now it's a display tank, and now I don't have a quarantine tank anymore. So I say, if it looks ugly, that's okay, because it's probably going to work out. Now, one thing that I may actually consider doing here very shortly, maybe in the next batch of fish, is one thing you can do, put a bunch of these in. That way the water is very tannin stained. It's got a good chance of fighting off fungus, bacteria, and it's healthy for the fish, and it gives them lots of place to hide, even though you're not providing a lot of hiding places, unless you get a bunch of like fake rocks or terracotta pots or something. But that is another good method too. I would say that 1-2 punch. The only downside is with black water, it can be hard to see if there is anything wrong with them. So unless you're a very observant aquarist, that may not be the best method. So again, we'll do a whole nother video on quarantine tanks. I will do one probably pre-recorded and then just put out to you all so you can see my quarantine tank and what I do in there, and then pros and cons of what you can do and what you should be doing with a quarantine tank. But that's about all I have for you all. I hope that was very informative. There was a lot of stuff that I have used with my professional job, like copper, fenbendazole. Let me think. Praziquantel, metronidazole. I mean, there's probably even more that I can't even think about right now. But I've used a wide variety of stuff in the professional sense with saltwater aquariums, so I can give advice if anyone has saltwater questions. I can tell you what I did and how it worked for me. If that's something that you want to know, leave a comment down below. but I'm not going to ramble on about that because this is mostly about freshwater. And while it could apply, it doesn't really apply that much because usually we have pretty small fish, and I haven't tried it with freshwater. So I don't want to lead you astray. But I think that's all I got for this live stream. I know this was a little bit shorter, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Next week's live stream is going to be plant fertilizer. So that one's going to be a lot longer because I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Not sure when it's going to be, but when I figure out when that will be, I will hopefully put a reminder up what time I'm planning on posting or starting that live stream. So hopefully people can jump on and follow it. Because I know it can be hard with this last minute. No one actually knows when the live stream is going to be. So I'm going to keep working on that and getting better. If you guys want more regular content, pictures of the various tanks, the fish, the terrariums, things like that, follow me on Instagram and on Facebook where I post a lot more regularly. So you all can get a lot more regular and enjoyable content. And if you have any questions, it's a lot easier to find me there as well, because I can answer it during the day. I can take 2 seconds out of my workday to do that if I must. So anyway, that's about all I got. Hope you all had a happy 4th, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.